Hi, this is George Sandmann. I'm the founder and CEO of Growth Drive. Growth Drive is the #1 best-selling business advising platform, and this is our podcast, The Business Advisor Hot Seat. Now, in the hot seat, you're going to hear from industry leaders, thought leaders, your colleagues who are going to share tips, techniques, war stories about building a thriving advisory business based on delivering client wins. We're going to get into it. We'll get into it about the Growth Drive methodology, the Clarity software, what we see out in the world, so much more than just the system. And I'm also the author of The Growth Driving Advisor, which is based on over a decade of being an advisor to advisor, working with you and your colleagues, helping them build their practices, helping them through client engagements, and it's really proven strategies for leading businesses from stuck to best in class. Check it out. So strap in. We're going to light this up. Here we go. Hi, this is George Sandmann, and I'm going to read you an article that we're publishing today, July 10th, 2026. And the article is, "What is the role of a wealth advisor in ensuring the business asset serves their clients' long-term personal and wealth goals?" I wrote this article. I'm the CEO of Growth Drive and author of The Growth Driving Advisor from Forbes Books. So here we go. What is the role of the wealth advisor in ensuring a business client's... Let me try that again. What is the role of a wealth advisor in ensuring a client's business serves their long-term personal and wealth goals? The short answer is this is a role most wealth advisors do not have. Not because they lack the skill or the intention, but because the service model they inherited was never designed to include it. The portfolio gets managed, the financial plan gets built, yet the transferable value of the business that will make the financial plan work is largely ignored until it's time to monetize. This is a missed opportunity of the first order. Business owners in the $2.5 million to $100 million revenue range are among the most valuable clients a wealth advisor can serve, and there are not unlimited numbers of them. If you're a wealth advisor looking to protect existing business and add new clients, making yourself hyper-relevant to the business is top of the list. In this article, we will share proven strategies for winning new business-owning clients, plus advanced wealth planning, succession planning, sophisticated compensation planning, and insurance product placement opportunities. Not focusing specifically on the business is a coherent approach for a client whose largest asset is a brokerage account. It's not coherent for a client whose largest asset is a privately held business generating $800,000 a year of EBITDA, representing $4 million or more of equity, and carrying the majority of everything your client has worked to build. For that client, the advisor who manages the portfolio and waits for the liquidity event has organized their practice around the second most important financial relationship the client has. Let's say that again. You will have organized your relationship around the second most important financial relationship the client has, right? Most of their wealth is trapped in their business. Okay. I want to be careful here because many advisors do deliver meaningful services around the business: insurance, buy-sell agreements, succession frameworks, compensation planning, and those services have genuine value, and I applaud the advisors who provide them. But delivering services around the business is not the same as helping the client understand the business as a financial asset. Virtually no wealth advisors today are educating business-owning clients about strategic capacity, about transferable value, or about what it actually means for a privately held company to operate at institutional standard. That gap is not a service gap. It is a knowledge gap, and it is costing clients the success they worked their entire careers to create. The role of a wealth advisor is to help clients. Now, there's a call out here, right? The role of a wealth advisor is to help clients get the financial success they want. For a business owning clients, that means understanding the business as the asset it actually is and seeing where to focus to achieve success. Working in strategic partnership with BEI, home of the CEXP credential, we at Growth Drive are empowering wealth and insurance advisors to deliver these services, increasing your reach and relevance, and helping you build a thriving advisory business. Stay tuned, and there's a link in the article to get on the list to stay in the know. Okay, be one of the cool kids. All right. The role of a wealth advisor, stated plainly, is to help clients get the financial success they want. For advisors serving business owning clients, this moves from delivering a portfolio return to arriving at the end of their working life with genuine options. Options like the ability to step back without stepping away, to harvest wealth on their own terms, to transfer the business when they choose and to whom they choose, or to complete a transaction that delivers what they envisage, what they planned on, what their wealth plan calls for. Okay. And there, that there are things on the personal planning side beyond, financial success is great. Personal success is related, but different. Okay. Back to the article. Are you surprised to learn that most will not arrive there? Only 20% of businesses that go to market successfully transact. Of those, by the way, only 20% of businesses that go to market successfully transact. It is a tiny percentage of the businesses out there. Of those, most close below the top of the valuation range. There is only approximately $2 trillion of acquisition capital available for a $10 trillion seller market. So an exit assuming model is not statistically unlikely. I'm sorry, an exit assuming model is not just statistically unlikely. It is built on a premise the market cannot fulfill for most owners. Think about it. Research from our friends at the Exit Planning Institute finds that approximately 75% of business owners who do complete a transaction report significant regret afterwards. And this gets into your personal and financial planning. This is a three-dimensional failure. First, it is a personal planning failure. Most owners have not done the work to define what comes next, and the transaction leaves a vacuum where identity and purpose used to live. Second, it is a financial sufficiency failure. The process, after taxes, earn-out risk, and deal friction, often falls short of what the owner actually needs. The owner, your client, actually needs. Third, the people and the business the owner cares about most are frequently not well served, and in some cases are actually harmed by the sale. Only by engaging long before a liquidity event can this be mitigated. The answer is to work with a top pro like my friend Mike Garrison, who you all know well, author of Can I Borrow Your Car, who has spent his career and most of his waking hours helping financial advisors grow their businesses and love their lives. How? By turning their advisory business into an 85 plus strategic capacity asset class business and helping their clients do the same. Savvy business owning clients do not expect their wealth advisor to become a business consultant. And I am not arguing that wealth advisors and insurance advisors should become business consultants. That's a no. They expect their wealth advisor to understand that the business is in the room. This concentrated, illiquid equity is a risk exposure that belongs in the financial plan, a planning opportunity that belongs in the advisory conversation, and a wealth driver that belongs under the same standard of care as every other asset the advisor touches. Next section, where your clients actually stand. For businesses with easy for me to say. All right. For businesses with gross annual revenues between $2.5 and $100 million, the mean strategic capacity score is 54.1, placing the average client in the emerging band. Right? There are scoring bands. They're in the emerging band. Suboptimal value, inconsistent execution, and monetization options that are largely inaccessible to private capital. Business owners consistently overestimate the transferable value of what they have built. Sound familiar? And their understanding of value is often in the wealth plan, setting the stage for failure. The problem can be solved in hours by applying independent diligence to strategic capacity, the driver of business value, right? You can help your client educate your client in minutes and hours by applying independent diligence to strategic capacity, which is the driver of business value. A formal business valuation for insurance, estate planning, or a buy-sell agreement does not tell the owner about the quality of their business as an asset. It establishes a defensible number for a defined purpose. Strategic capacity analysis, on the other hand, looks at the business from the private capital markets perspective, an external, quantitative assessment of how the business performs against the criteria sophisticated buyers and lenders actually apply. Now, who better than you? Who better than the wealth advisor to help a client understand how their business looks from that perspective, from the private capital markets perspective, and what it would take to change the picture? This conversation can be surfaced in hours. Honestly, you can start the conversation in minutes. Okay. Strategic capacity is a business's measurable, and we've been talking about strategic capacity, right? So strategic capacity is defined. Strategic capacity is a business's measurable ability to predictably and sustainably grow profits, cash flows, and transferable equity value through proven non-founder leadership, documented systems, scalable processes, and disciplined financial management. It is quantified across 24 growth-driving objectives organized equally into the 3 dimensions of business growth: predictable profits and cash flow, predictable sustainable growth, and predictable transferable value. And the private capital markets are seeking businesses that can predictably and sustainably grow free cash flow. Okay, so the 3 dimensions are very, very relevant to your client's life. Any of these 24 objectives can represent a growth or deal killer, obviate the entire ability to transact. The resulting score from 0 to 100 places every business on a defined continuum from founder state through asset class. All scoring reflects a financial buyer's perspective, right? So this is a conservative perspective, not strategic or synergistic value. And then we have a table here, and I'll read it to you. So there are 3 columns: score, the scoring band, and what it means for the owner's options. So with a score from 0 to 40, we're in a band called founder state. And what it means is that value is concentrated and largely non-transferable. Growth and deal killers across multiple dimensions make any monetization event difficult without transformational work. With a score of 41 to 54, the business is what we call emerging. And what it means is that some systems exist, but execution is inconsistent. Value is suboptimal and largely inaccessible to private capital. This is where the average business in the 2.5 to 100 million revenue range sit today. With a score of 55 to 69, by the way, this is on a logarithmic exponential scale, right? It's a bell curve. 55 to 69, these businesses are maturing. They've created a solid foundation but have capacity constraints. A transferable event is possible, but premium pricing is not yet supported. It's possible, but there will be high friction. Some wealth harvesting paths are partially available. Okay, this is where you see onerous terms, huge friction in the transaction, due diligence, pain and suffering, etc. With a score of 70 to 84, we are in the professional band. This business has strong execution. Value is increasingly transferable. They're approaching institutional quality. The last mile matters enormously, and the full range of paths begin to open. 70 is roughly that line, right? These aren't bright lines; these are phases, right? So 70 is roughly the line where you can start looking at your client saying, okay, we can approach an M&A or similar transaction, or you can be highly confident or increasingly confident in the business's ability to pay you should you sell it to your team, for example, and get paid out of earnings, or sell it to your offspring, the second generation, third generation, and get paid out of future cash. All right, 70 to 84. Now, here's where we want our clients to go. Here's where we want our economy to go. 85 plus, a score of 85 plus. By the way, there are no hundreds. There's no such thing as a perfect business, right? That's a silly 85 plus. These are asset class. This is the institutional standard. These are independently operating, predictably growing, fully transferable. All monetization and wealth, listen to me, all monetization and wealth harvesting paths are available on the owner's terms and timeline. And if you want to understand why, there's a link at the end of this article. You can download it. You click on the link and grab the either of the white papers. Okay, and you'll start to understand what it means to be 85 plus. These are killer businesses. Okay, they have, and what's important to remember, guys, is that exit. And here I'm riffing. I'm out of the article. An exit does not mean leaving. Does not need to mean leaving the business. It can simply mean exiting the accountabilities chart, so that your client goes from being the president to being the CEO to being the chairman, and harvesting wealth from the business while not relinquishing those three big, important, big fat benefits: the lifestyle benefit, the tax benefit, and the ego benefit. Don't underestimate that one. Those three benefits of owning the business. All right, back to the article. As the score decreases below 85, the predictability of future profitable growth follows with it, logarithmically, and value becomes accessible only through increasingly constrained means. A business at 54.1, which is the mean, is not halfway to asset class. It is in a structurally different condition. The growth and value gap is logarithmic. It compounds as the score gets lower, not with every year that passes, but with every point of distance from the institutional standard. Next section. From income asset to wealth engine, what asset class unlocks? Now, here the conversation most business owners have never had. Here's the conversation that most business owners have never had. Reaching 85 plus does not mean you have to sell. It means you have choices. For a client whose business is significantly dependent on their presence and scoring near the mean, there are effectively two outcomes: keep working or accept a suboptimal exit on a buyer's terms. Neither reflects success from the personal or professional perspective. But here is what strategic capacity delivers. When the business operates independently through proven leadership, documented systems, and disciplined financial management, the owner's relationship with the business transforms from operator to owner, from constrained to optioned, from a single possible outcome to a full menu of paths selected on the owner's, on your client's terms. Next subsection. From operator to owner, distributions, chairman role, and growing AUM. At asset class, at 85 plus, the owner can step back from operations entirely and begin drawing distributions rather than a salary tied to personal production. Free cash flow converts directly into investable assets. Free cash flow, by the way, is a term of art. Free cash flow is what's left after you've spent all the money you need to spend, right? So it is the ultimate profit. And when I talk to private equity groups, by the way, and private equity investors, they love the fact that we are referring to FCF, free cash flow. That is the gold standard, right? That's the money. Okay. All other EBITDA and all that other mumbo jumbo. You want to know what Warren Buffett cares about? FCF. All right. Free cash flow converts directly into investable assets, right? So now we're diversifying risk. Compounding inside the wealth plan the advisor manages, right? Alternatively, the owner can transition to a chairman or shareholder role, engaged in vision and governance, absent from execution, retaining full equity upside while the senior leadership team runs the business. Both expressions of this path deliver what a transaction cannot: the lifestyle the owner designed their business to create, with the business continuing to grow beneath them. For the wealth advisor, this is a multi-year AUM growth opportunity requiring no transaction at all. Remember how often transactions are successful, ladies and gentlemen, requiring no transaction at all. Next subsection, from illiquid equity to diversified wealth, recapitalization. A minority equity sale or debt recapitalization converts a portion of illiquid assets, of illiquid business equity, into diversified wealth without a full exit. This path is partially available to businesses below the asset class threshold, but the terms degrade materially as the score drops. A lender or equity partner asks the same question any buyer asks. Can this business generate predictable cash flow independently? At 85, the answer is yes, with evidence, supported by evidence, and institutional quality pricing follows. At 54, the answer is uncertain, and the capital reflects that uncertainty in structure, rate, and control provisions. Are you feeling it? Are you feeling it? Okay. Now, from hope to evidence, next subsection, third-party sale. The conventional exit, executed from a position of maximum leverage. An asset class business enters the market from a documented strategic capacity score, a transferable equity value calculation, and a readiness roadmap, right? That's what they have in hand. Asset class businesses consistently achieve 3 or more additional turns at the deal table, more additional at the deal table. They're starting to create strategic turns in their own merit, right? Very important to remember. So, 3 or more additional turns at the deal table compared to businesses presenting similar financial metrics without the underlying operational infrastructure. This path is technically available at any score, but the difference between selling at 54 and selling at 85 is the difference between a buyer's market and a seller's market. Okay. At 54, you're in a buyer's market. At 85, you're commanding price. All right, next subsection. From aspiration to execution, sale to the senior leadership team. Very common, right? Many business owners aspire to sell to the team that built the business alongside them, and few execute it successfully. And we can all think of the stories, right? The obstacle is not motivation. It is that an SLT buyout requires the buyer to service the purchase price from future free cash flow. And the risk to that cash flow is precisely what most businesses at or below the mean score cannot resolve. At 85, the business runs through systems and proven leadership, the track record is documented, and the transaction is bankable. The owner can be confident they will be well paid from performance that does not depend on their continued presence. And then there's a text box. The 85 plus score is not an exit credential, it is an optionality credential. And the wealth advisor who helps a client understand that distinction is delivering something genuinely irreplaceable. Next section, the planning agenda, the analysis opens. The strategic capacity assessment is the entry point into a multi-year planning engagement that generates immediate value across every service line a wealth advisor offers. This is the essence of what the Business Enterprise Institute calls owner-based planning, and there's a link to learn more there, a comprehensive framework anchored in the owner's personal goals and the specific gaps the assessment services. The gap between what the business is formally valued at and what it will actually transfer for is often the largest hole in the client's financial picture. The strategic capacity assessment makes that hole visible. What follows is a concrete planning agenda. Advanced wealth planning becomes actionable the moment the transferable equity value calculation is in hand. The value gap, or the difference between what the business could be worth and what it is actually will actually transfer for today, right? So think in terms of LOI value and post due diligence M&A price. I'll read that again. The value gap, the difference between what the business could be worth and what it will actually transfer for today, reframes every other element of the wealth plan. Retirement modeling, estate planning, tax strategy, and liquidity planning all shift
when the largest asset in the picture finally has honest numbers attached to it. Sophisticated compensation planning is surfaced directly by the assessment. When senior leadership alignment scores below standard, the analysis has identified a retention risk and a structural barrier to every monetization path. Equity participation plans, deferred compensation structures, and performance-based incentive design are the instruments that close that gap, and the wealth advisor who can speak to their design is immediately valuable in a domain that compounds the client relationship for years. And as an aside, anecdotally, we are seeing wealth advisors recommend to their business owning clients that they structure compensation around strategic capacity scores and around achieving higher and higher demonstrated strategic capacity scores. Imagine the one thing that a lot of clients don't want to share, that don't want to have transparency with their senior leadership team, always has dollar signs in front of it, right? When we shift that to strategic capacity and you think about everything we've just discussed, imagine bringing that option to your client. Succession planning, whether the goal is a chairman transition, an SLT buyout, or a clean third-party sale, is the multi-year development of the operational infrastructure that makes any path possible. The assessment provides something succession planning conversations almost always lack: a quantified, dimension-by-dimension picture of where the gaps are and what needs to be built. Sophisticated insurance product placement follows directly from what the analysis surfaces. Any of the 24 growth driving objectives can represent a growth or deal killer, and the assessment identifies which ones apply to this client's business specifically. Key person life and disability insurance, buy-sell funding, business continuation structures, and for clients approaching the chairman transition, premium financing and private placement life insurance for tax-efficient wealth transfer. Each of these is opened by what the assessment reveals, not by a generic risk conversation. The advisor who initiates a strategic capacity assessment receives a detailed map of the planning work that needs to happen across the full range of the client's financial life without acting as a business advisor. Every gap is a conversation. Every conversation is a planning opportunity. And the advisor who opens the conversation before becomes the most relevant professional in the client's life. I'll read this again. And the advisor who opens that conversation becomes the most relevant professional in the client's life. Why this matters for your practice. Business owners in the $2.5 million to $100 million revenue range are not an infinite population. Data shows that there are approximately only 650,000 qualified entities. The advisors, think about how many wealth advisors there are. Okay, so the advisors who serve them well at depth across the full picture of their financial lives build the most defensible books in the industry. And therefore, that impacts the value of your advisory business, right? Build the most defensible books in the industry. Is this you? Should it be? The strategic capacity score gives a wealth advisor something concrete to deliver before a single account is opened: an independent, quantified picture of the client's most important financial asset and a clear line from that picture to every financial goal they hold. And I'd add personal goals as well. For the advisor with existing business owning clients, the same assessment creates a structured reason to have a new and different conversation, one that surfaces the operational realities the client knows are true but has never seen reflected in a professional assessment, and that makes every element of the wealth plan more relevant because the largest piece of the client's financial picture is finally in the room. The client who experiences their wealth advisor, you, as genuinely invested in the success of their business is the client who does not take calls from competitors, and also the client who's going to bring their friends to the party, right? You need to talk to my guy, my gal. I have spent my career watching the two most important financial relationships in a business owner's life, the advisor and the business, fail to speak to each other. Transactions, when they come, produce a number. And horribly, more often than not, the transaction did not produce the success the client had imagined. Should you step in and help simply by educating your clients about risks and realities? The mean strategic capacity score of 54.1 is a starting point, not a judgment. Most businesses can move meaningfully along the continuum with focused advisory engagement. The advisor who initiates the assessment, builds the planning agenda around what it surfaces, and stays engaged through the journey repositions themselves in their client's mind from providing an add-on service to providing the most consequential financial guidance a business owning client can receive. This is your role. And it is, in my view, the most important opportunity in wealth advisory today. Thank you.